Child, do you hear the devil behind you? Do you hear him whisper in your ear? Close your eyes, wish him away.
Child, can you feel her reaching in your heart? Do you feel her in your soul? Close your eyes, wish her away. Wish it away.
Hey guys, this is Roxy, and I'm excited to have you guys listen to the interview that I did with Fred on his new program called Talking to the Dead with Fred. And it is being featured on paranormalking.com. You can hear a bunch of other interviews up there. Hope you like the one we have coming up. It's going to be about haunted bars throughout Texas and some of the experiences that Fred as a psychic medium and myself as an empath have had over the years. Hope you enjoy it, and if you want to look up some more information on Fred, feel free to at CuriousTwins.com.
Hello, you are listening to Paranormal King Network. You can learn more by going to ParanormalKing.com. This is Talking to the Dead with Fred. I'm a psychic medium based in San Antonio, Texas, and this week's episode is all about haunted bars. And I'm excited to share with you this topic. I have my good friend and colleague, Roxy, and she is the founder of SASP, San Antonio Supernatural Paranormal. Roxy is an empath that uses her gift to help others and to research the paranormal as well as to collect haunted artifacts. Welcome, Roxy.
It's nice to be here with you. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here with us. We appreciate it. We're recording live at Roxy's house, and so if you do hear any of her lovely dogs, that's kind of normal. She also has a huge collection of haunted artifacts, so if you hear any strange noises, that perhaps may be one of those artifacts or one of the haunted dolls she does have. We are in a room with lots of haunted dolls, so just in case, we're just giving you a fair warning. So let's get talking. I have a lot of questions for you today.
Absolutely.
But first, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, myself as a child, I always knew that I had a gift. I think most people around me knew that I had a gift. As I got older, I kind of moved away from it because I didn't understand it, and there weren't a lot of people that would support you in something like that, especially coming from a very fundamental religious background. And at one point in my life, I think what was a turning point for me was when I was able to see one of my neighbors who had been murdered, and went down to the police station within hours of it happening, talked to the police at the police station, and next thing I knew, I was working with the FBI and forensics to try to give a rendering of what I had seen. And within about 3 to 4 days, the person who had done the murder was apprehended and is now doing life in prison.
Wow. And you were able to be a part of that and help deal with that crime. That's amazing.
Yes, anytime there's somebody who's in a lot of pain, and especially if they're in close proximity to me, I'm able to pick that up through very strong emotions. So what happened to happened to her in the murder is kind of what made me feel and see everything that was going on.
Sure. Well, that's really fascinating, and thank you so much for sharing that. But I'm kind of curious why you created, SASP. What attracted you to create it? Kind of what it's all about. I would love for you to share that with everybody listening.
Well, the reason I actually started SASP was really for myself, and I wanted to find other people who had the same types of gifts that I did. Maybe not necessarily an empath, but a medium or a psychic, or people who understood what these gifts were like and didn't look at it in a very negative way, where people in our community could come together, whether it's SASP working with CuriousTwins or any other groups that are out there, and kind of become part of the paranormal community.
Yeah. Well, great. Yeah. I think that's a really valuable thing, not only for us in the city of San Antonio, but for other places worldwide, to get this kind of, message of inclusion, of acceptance, of honoring oneself and one's own gifts, and I guess even one's own curiosity, right? That's why you started it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that's pretty cool, I think, and I'm really fascinated because you collect haunted artifacts, and I know most of what you have are dolls, but you have other things and other just really interesting things that you've collected that are associated with the paranormal. Can you walk us through some of that? Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, I'm really interested.
I think I was so desperate in the beginning just to be able to communicate again with the other side, or
Sure.
whatever's out there. So I commissioned a divot box. I've got wheelchairs from back in the early 1900s. I've got carriages and dolls and artifacts, bones, books, just about everything you can think
Yeah.
of. But I think a lot of that just the starting point for that was just me being desperate to reach out and try to communicate and see if I could get an answer back.
Yeah.
So it started out as a search for an answer,
Sure.
ended up turning into a hobby. So now I collect haunted objects, and I do, come out here to my little cubby hole with all my stuff and just sometimes sit here and go, does anybody have anything to say to me? And, and I still do look for those answers sometimes at 2, 3 in the morning. Don't always get them. Sometimes I get more than I bargained for.
Of course, yeah. So, I guess, can you tell me, I mean, you've investigated these items as well. Can you tell me, what you do, what kind of investigation work you've done with them, and, and also with SAPS?
Well, what we've done with the items, a lot of times we'll isolate ourselves with the newer items that come in, like the ones that I picked up this weekend. We'll put K2 meters out, we'll put the REM pod out, we'll set up a static video camera, and sometimes we'll even, bring out the spirit board to see if we can have any type of communication, and of course we're recording at the same time.
Yeah.
So we bring out all the equipment we can to see if with that particular item we can pick up anything, whether it's actual residual, is it a true haunting, is it just something that attaches itself and wants to communicate. So we
Sure.
try to record as much as we can with each individual piece that we bring back.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Like, do you have a few favorite pieces that you could tell us about, maybe?
Well, Guinevere and Genevieve, my 2 dolls, are probably at the top of my list. They came over from the UK, and the person who actually painted them had set them up inside of an insane asylum to take the picture, and it was an insane asylum for children.
Oh, wow.
And so I think at the time he put them there to take the pictures, something attached itself to the dolls, and
Yeah.
I purchased one of them. And when she came, I kept having dreams about the other one. And then the second doll came when I ordered her. And we actually have some recordings and videos where you can hear them say their names, tell you what they're looking for, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So we do have both video and audio on both the girls.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course. And now, if somebody wanted to see any of those, can they find them anywhere?
You could, if you go to our YouTube page,
Okay.
we do have the videos up of Guinevere and Genevieve.
And what's the YouTube page labeled?
It's SA Supernatural Paranormal.
Okay, so like for San Antonio Supernatural Paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so if any of you guys are listening or interested in seeing some of that evidence and seeing a little bit of, Roxy's collection here, I know this is a radio show, so there's not a lot of visual that you're going to get right now, but, if you want to go on YouTube and check those things out, I think it's really fascinating. We actually did an event with you, maybe 3 weeks ago or a month ago, where we did, kind of a haunted toy exhibit, and you brought some of these out, and you got to talk to people and share some of that. And I thought that was really powerful and great. It was a little bit of an overwhelming experience for us. We had something like 8,000 people tried to come through within 4 hours.
Oh my God, the line was wrapped around the building.
Yeah, it was really crazy. But I think that this idea of trying to bring the paranormal front and center to people is great, because I think there's so much misunderstanding, misstatements about the paranormal. People think that it's all Hollywood and movies and blood and guts, and it's just so opposite. And I think that's really one of the main reasons why I want to do this show, is because I kind of want to paint a narrative that is really honest about the paranormal,
and more accurate.
Yeah, that brings the paranormal to an understanding of acceptance. I always tell people, one of my goals is really just to make the paranormal a little bit more normal, and bring it front and center. So I'm really grateful that you have this collection, that you're sharing it with people, and that you're taking the time right now to do this interview. So thank you so much.
I love being here with you.
Thank you. So a little bit of the other stuff I want to get into is haunted bars. This is America, and we have a shorter history than a lot of places in the world, but here in America we have quite a few haunted bars, and quite a few association with haunts and bars, and as well as the UK, and there's just a lot of information. I'm really always fascinated by the idea of a place that you can go that becomes like a family, that becomes comfortable, that you can go and just kind of wind down. And I think that's what a bar is for a lot of people. And so to me, it's no surprise that a lot of bars are haunted. But that's what this whole show is really about. So why do you think that bars are common places of haunts, really all over the world? What do you think?
I, as an empath, when people go into bars typically and start drinking, they let go of all their inhibitions, mm-hmm. and lose that control of where they can have their emotions in check sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think a combination between the emotional turmoil that goes on, whether it's, a divorce, a breakup, a death in the family, anything like that, people typically go out and try to wash all that away with some type of beverage of whatever their liking is, rum, choice, vodka, beer, I don't know. But when that happens, they break down all those barriers. Sure. And it makes it so much easier for someone like me as an empath to pick up on that when that starts to happen.
Sure.
So I think that's why when you go to bars, you'll hear all these stories about hauntings, because that kind of energy kind of pulls everything together like a beacon of light.
Yeah.
And everything starts to come there because it uses that energy to be able to try to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us, we tend to have a bar, mm-hmm. a bar that we really enjoy going to, and it's, we begin to know people there. We begin to know the bartenders. We begin to kind of create our own stories there and our own memories there. And, my husband and I, we have a bar that we really enjoy going to, the 2015 here in San Antonio. And it's not necessarily a haunted bar, although it might be in some ways. I've experienced a few things here and there, but I think it's a place that's familiar to people. It's a place that people go to have fun. And I think that creates a really special energy in a lot of ways. And I believe that bars are often haunted, for really two basic reasons. One is that, like I'm saying, a little earlier, is that people like to return. Spirits like to return back to a place that's familiar, a place that they had fun, a place that they associated with the good sometime in their life. And I think sometimes that's achieved at a bar. There was a whole TV series that, Cheers, all created around this bar culture, because people could go there and it was this, expression of joy and happiness, and, the idea of a place where everybody knows your name. And I think that that's one of the reasons why bars are haunted. But then I think one of the other reasons is that, sometimes people go to a bar to to mask their pain, to mask their hurt, to mask all these really difficult things in their life that they're not able to deal with. And sometimes people die before they've been able to deal with those things, and so they return back. Maybe because it's familiar, maybe because there's some comfort there. Maybe it's because that's the only comfort that they feel like they're gonna find. But I myself have really experienced quite a few things at bars, and that's why I was really, really interested in kind of trying to do a little bit of show that highlighted bars. And I guess, the truth is I enjoy going to a good bar, and like whenever we travel or, we're in the city, we always try to find a new haunted bar and to learn its history. And I've just been really fascinated by that for a really, really long time. So,
I'm curious as an empath, if maybe myself in particular, maybe other empaths may have different experiences. I tend to pick up, not really on, with my haunted objects is very different. I can pick up happiness, I can pick up this, I can pick up that. But in certain places, I tend to pick up on people's really, really deep emotions that they don't show. And usually those deep, deep emotions are never, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And if they are, there's usually the people I don't pick up on. The ones I pick up on are usually the ones that are in pain.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just me in particular, if it's my gift as an empath, or if other empaths experience the same thing.
I think, it's very common for an empath to pick up pain or to pick up hurt, because most of the empaths that I know are the kind of people that are healers deep down inside, and they want to create a better place. They want people to be happy. And so whenever there's a negative, it's almost kind of like that maternal instinct comes out and wants to help and heal and make people feel better. And I think the gift of being an empath is really beautiful, but I also feel like it's intense. Being a psychic medium, I kind of I can feel emotion, and sometimes I'm really struck by it, but I feel like I'm not sucked into like really feeling what the same person feels. It's more like a little bit of empathy, rather than I'm experiencing all that pain. And so I can only imagine, really what that can be like for you as an empath,
Yeah, it can be definitely overwhelming. I know you've been on a couple adventures with me where we've had some crazy stuff happen.
Yeah. I think I particularly like a bar. I have been to bars that are so loud, and not loud in a sense of like, oh, it's a loud music thing, but like spirits being so loud and trying to get my attention that it's been really, really uncomfortable. But I guess, as a psychic medium, when I go into a bar and I'm going to have a few drinks, it kind of helps me separate myself from that gift at times, and I know there's a lot of psychic mediums that they don't drink at all. And that's because they want to be in very control of that gift. And I think for me, sometimes I enjoy having a drink because it helps me to separate myself and helps me to kind of just enjoy stuff, and so I don't necessarily always pick up stuff at a bar. I try to kind of turn it off and get quiet, but, I've had some experiences that, I can't deny, and the experiences kind of before the bartender ever served me.
Right.
But, I'm just curious, have you ever had a paranormal experience yourself at a bar? And if so, can you tell me about it?
Actually, back sometime last year, we were up at the Long Branch Saloon in Gonzales, Texas. And the owner, Karen and Keith, were both there. And we went in and did an investigation. The place looked like it, at the time had been in the OK Corral shootout. There's bullet holes all over the wall. The previous owner, they spread his ashes all over the floor because he liked to dance, and they had danced all over the ashes, and there's ashes buried under the building. And so we went to do an investigation. That was about a year ago. So we just recently went back this weekend.
Oh, wow.
And I found out that Karen's husband had passed back in January. So we sit down. It's the middle of the day. The bar is quiet. There's maybe two people there, the one that's working and one other person sitting at the bar. And I'm talking to Karen, and she's telling me everything that they do, where she has her picture of her husband up on the bar, and they leave out a shot of rum for him every night because that was his favorite drink, along with some jewelry that was very personal to him. in this one little like altar that they have on the bar. And she told me, as she's telling me, she goes, every evening, right when the bar was going to kick off, they would play a certain country music song and do a shot of rum. As soon as she finishes telling me this, of course the music's going on in the background, the song that she had just told me about came on the jukebox as soon as she said that. And I looked at her and go, I think you need to go get a shot of rum, is what I'm going to say. So so that is probably, and we did get some activity at that bar because we did work there the year ago with, after hours with them.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's, I've had a couple of experiences at bars, and I think my very first experience, my husband Steve and I, we were out in Seattle, and we were actually doing a ghost tour. We love doing ghost tours everywhere we go. We try to do one because we like to learn from other people and hear stories and history. And and I, for the life of me, I can't remember the bar, but we're close to Pioneer Square in Seattle, and we go into this bar, and all of a sudden I just hear hey, like these really loud hays, and I'm like, what? Yeah, like looking around, and it was just so loud and abruptive that I didn't even realize it was coming from spirit, it was very, very audible, and I'm kind of like, what the hell? And then I'm sitting here, and the guide is like trying to tell us all these stories and tell us the history, and I'm just like continuously hearing hey. And so I turn to Steven, and Steven doesn't have the same gifts that I do, and I'm like, can you hear that? And he's like, what? And I'm like, that hey, somebody keeps saying hey, like, and I'm like, he's like, no, there's nothing. But, I know what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing hey, and it's just like so overwhelming for me, because it's just like, it's literally screaming at me, and nobody else is hearing it or picking it up. And so I finally tell him, hey, finish listening to the story. I'm going to go outside. I just need to get away. This is just too loud for me. And he finishes up and probably comes out 5 minutes later. And it was just a really unique experience. And I think I would have been more interested in talking with the spirit if it hadn't been so aggressive, but it was just so loud that I just blocked it, and I had another kind of interesting experience that was kind of I don't know how to really explain it. It was we were at a bar in New Orleans, and we were on the second story. There's two bars. There's a downstairs bar where there's pool and all this stuff, and there's an upstairs bar, which is to be very honest, a lot seedier upstairs. And like it's just like very dark and seedy, and and we're there, and we're hanging out, and all of a sudden, I just see this gentleman going back and forth, like walking around, like almost like really anxious. Like, and I don't know why. I think, my knowing perspective as a medium felt like it was drug related. This individual was just like trying to figure out what was going on. I think he was really high, and also drunk, and at the time of his death. And I'm just feeling, he's just like darting back and forth, going back and forth, and Steven needs to go to the restroom. And so I'm sitting at the bar and waiting for him to come back, and he comes back, and he's like, hey, I just heard one of the other bartenders downstairs, and he's talking about how recently there was a gentleman who fell down the stairs after being really drunk and high, and ended up dying. He broke his neck and ended up dying at the bottom of the stairs. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that explains all of this, But I think it's just interesting how these spirits get, attached to the bars itself. And I guess, that idea, especially if you're in a decent place, can be a rather happy one. I have this thing I always tell people, two things about my death. When I die, please don't ever say rest in peace, because I guarantee you, as a spirit, I will not be resting. It's not in my nature, so I'm not doing that. And then the other thing is that I want to have my funeral in a bar. It's a happy place. I don't want to have like a weird like funeral service in a mortuary or anything. I just want to have fun, And so I think that this idea of of doing it in a bar and you know, and spending one's last days and hours, especially if it's filled with happiness and not pain and not trouble, can be really attractive and beautiful in some ways. And so I'd like to bring that out, you know. And then I have kind of another story that I think is super romantic in a lot of ways. Is we were in Alaska, and I can't remember where in Alaska, but I remember the hotel we were at. It was called the Alaska Hotel, and it's a super haunted hotel, and people have committed suicide there. People, you know, all sorts of stuff. It has a rich mining history of people, you know, staying there while they were mining and looking for gold and stuff in Alaska. And we're at this particular hotel, and they have a really gorgeous bar. You know, it was kind of built, you know, at the probably 1910s, 1913, and there's some stained glass in the bar, and there's like beautiful wood, and it just like, it's an attractive bar, and it has like 2 levels. It has kind of like a balcony level and a downstairs. So we're sitting in the balcony and looking out, and all of a sudden, like, I just see this gentleman, and he is with this young, beautiful woman, and he just kind of like grabs her and holds her close, and they just begin dancing. And I also know nobody can see them except me. And so they begin dancing, and I'm just like watching them and wonder at this beautiful like couple and this kind of this echo of history. And you know, it was just a residual haunt. You know, these people had experienced this love, and it just repeated itself. So, you know, I think that there can be more than just sorrow and more than just misery associated with hauntings. And I think a lot of people think, you know, oh my gosh, a ghost was so sad or this or that. But perhaps our happy memories, our residual stuff can also get caught in time and play itself back, you know, in the future. And I think that's just a really beautiful way of looking at life. And I encourage people to look at life a little bit like that. And, you know, maybe it's just because, you know, I see things and I try to look at things on a very positive perspective as a medium. But I think I don't know, I think there's something romantic about understanding ghosts and understanding spirits, and even understanding spirits in a bar, even if it's perhaps a dive bar. You can make memories anywhere, you know? But, you know, Roxy, what bars do you know of personally to be haunted around, you know, America?
Well, I know all the stories of most of the bars that are around and the histories they have with them. I don't typically tend to go to bars because, like you mentioned, the place you went to where you could hear the hey.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go in those places, and if it's a couple of people, I could probably do it. But if it's a really crowded bar and there's a lot of people there, the noise gets overwhelming for me. Like, even this weekend, we went to a bar and I had to leave. There's times I even go into a restaurant that has a bar, and just the noise and the chatter that goes through my head, I just start getting dizzy, and I can't be there. I have to do exactly what you did, is go, you know, you guys finish up your dinner. I will go wait for you guys outside, but I can't be here right now.
Yeah.
So I personally don't visit a lot of bars unless, like I did this weekend, and there's like 2 or 3 people, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's quiet, and then I can typically go into those type of locations. But I tend to stay away from bars just for that reason, because the chatter gets so loud in my head.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I totally get that. I think we have a little bit of a different perspective of why we go into bars and don't go into bars, you know. And I think that, you know, for everybody it's different. I think for the average human, you know, especially if they're interested in the paranormal, the idea of a haunted bar is kind of fun, you know. One, because it's, you know, oh, like, I want to go ghost hunting, let me find this bar, you know. I think there's a lot of ghost hunters that are interested. And then the idea of also that being associated with alcohol is kind of fun for people. You know, Steve and I, you know, do a bar tour here in San Antonio, and I hate that tour in a lot of ways because we always get people who are just rowdy. They're like, they've already been drinking, they're already like all a mess, and we tend to be these babysitters for them. But then we also occasionally will have real small groups, and, you know, we'll decide we're just gonna all sit down at a bar table and tell these ghost stories. And those are just amazing experiences. There's just something about conversation to me, and conversation and sharing at a bar that can be really attractive. And, you know, I think perhaps that's another reason why they could be haunted, just because one, residually good conversation I think is worth being repeated, and then also from the idea of this comfort level as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I think I think spirits are also somewhat attracted to alcohol. I think that we look at a lot of faith traditions and a lot of ancestral worship and ancestral beliefs and those kinds of things, especially like in curandisimo, Mexican folk healing, voodoo, santeria. Often offerings of alcohol are left behind. And I think it's somewhat of a beautiful thing, and there's multiple reasons why people leave those things behind. But
Well, I think also with the alcohol, the other one that I've seen that's very common is tobacco as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's from the Native Americans up until, today's time, because there's been a lot of places we've been, say after hours when they're closed, and you can smell the cigars,
smells.
you can smell the smoke,
Yeah.
you can smell, different aromas that come through sometimes
Sure.
from, and I don't know if you would call that a haunting or residual or what that would be when you pick
A
that
residual,
up.
I think, is for some of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do know that with the bars, the alcohol and also the tobacco seem to be like really two of the biggest offerings they see that are left behind.
Yeah.
And people will tell you, the shot glass was empty in the morning.
Yeah.
Or the tobacco is half gone. Those
Yeah.
kind of things. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what do you think actually attracts people and spirits to alcohol?
I think it's just a different way to break down barriers sometimes.
Yeah.
When you drink, you get less inhibited. You're able sometimes to be yourself if it's at a decent amount. If you go past that amount, then all right, maybe not so much.
Sure.
And it's the same thing with, a cigarette or some type of tobacco product, that it just makes you relax and just feel more at ease with things around you, and I think it makes it easier to communicate. Like if you go into a bar and you haven't drank yet, you probably don't talk to the person next to you.
Sure.
Have a couple of drinks, and then you're talking to everybody in the bar.
Yeah.
So I think it is a breakdown of inhibitions.
Yeah.
It allows people to communicate.
Yeah.
And but like I said, I take into excess, then maybe not. Maybe that's not the communication we all want.
Yeah, for sure. I really love the fact that you say communication. I think that's really sharp and on point. And for so many of us that are interested in the paranormal, what are we trying to do? Like spirit communication. And so this idea is really interesting. I know that there's a restaurant and bar in New Orleans called Murals, and I tend to actually really love the restaurant. And I've been pretty much a lifelong vegetarian and vegan, and they always will make me food, and that's probably one of the reasons I like it. But they have a spirit there, and it's said that they always pour the spirit a glass of wine and leave him bread and butter. And the times that they've forgotten to do so, things go wrong at the restaurant, and so I think that idea is really interesting. Is like even maybe in the afterlife, we need to be placated sometimes, and so leaving those offerings behind are really rich and cool, and works for Muriel's. They've been at it for a while, and leaving that. And in fact, if any of you guys want to check out Muriel's, it's in Jackson Square. It is highly recommended to have reservations there, but you can actually reserve the table where they leave the offering of bread and wine, and perhaps have a little dinner with the spirit there that day. And
that would be cool.
Many people, I think it's like $50 to sit at the table, just like that's a surcharge they charge you. But many people who have done it have some really interesting stories, have some interesting photos, have some interesting like audio recordings. I've never done it because I'm kind of cheap. I'm not going to pay $50 for a special table, but it's definitely worth a walk around. And as you walk in and walk around the restaurant and bar, you'll notice the tables they leave out, and you'll also notice that they really welcome the spirit of this that inhabits the restaurant. I think it's really cool that some establishments do that, and some establishments pay homage to that. And I think it's kind of fascinating. And I have kind of an interesting story. I read for people all the time, and I channel for people. And I had this young woman come in to see me one time, and she was probably maybe 24, 25. She's pretty young, and her mother had passed away at a very early age. Maybe she was 9 years old when her mom died, and she had breast cancer, and it was the last stages of it, and it was quick. And her mom just went so quick, and she had always really had trouble dealing with this death. And, for years she had sat on it. I think she had sat on it for a really long time. And into her adulthood, she began to wonder more and more about her mother. Mm-hmm. And she wanted me to contact her, and I channeled her mom. And, one of the questions was, how are you? Are you okay? Are you okay where you're at? And the mother responds back. And I don't know if I should tell the daughter these words because I'm kind of freaked out of is this appropriate to say? But the mother responds back, baby, I'm fine. Baby, I'm sitting on the porch. I'm smoking a joint and I'm drinking a Lone Star, which is a beer here in Texas. And I just thought that was really, really significant that's how she came through. And that's an activity that brought her peace and joy. And in the afterlife, smoking that joint and drinking a Lone Star is what made her happy, and I was weird out to tell the daughter, oh yeah, your mom is smoking a joint and drinking, but I did. And I told the daughter exactly what the mom said. I knew I had to. And the daughter, just as I tell her, she's just sobbing. And she was like, okay, now I know that you're really talking to my mom, because that's exactly who she was. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and I think that was really healing for her and a major turning point in her life of just being able to connect and being able to connect with the other side. And I having no idea of how this daughter would take it, that I'm telling her this. But I think sometimes for me as a psychic medium, I have to step outside of my own boundaries or, what I would normally think, should I say, should I not say, and just trust spirit. But it's just one of the stories that I have about, drinking and afterlife and smoking. And
yeah,
I just thought I would share it. But this is kind of for fun, this question. But have you ever been so drunk that you had that you thought you had a paranormal experience, but you really couldn't be sure?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know which one of us has it other than those that don't drink.
Yeah.
Because, you go out, you're having a good time, you party, you come back home. Of course, I've got a million haunted things in my house. And then, I go to sleep and I was like, did I just hear that? What was that?
Sure.
And then you realize, oh, it's the TV in the other room turned on, because it's on a timer or something. But you jump out of bed thinking one thing and it's something else. I think those of us that do, go out and have fun occasionally have absolutely experienced stuff where you're like, not really sure about that one.
Yeah, for sure. I know that I did this one pub tour in London, and it was really a horrible tour. That it was literally just about getting drunk. But the way that the guide opened up this tour is, if you drink enough, you'll see something tonight. And I got a kick out of that, and I think that holds truth for some people. You never know. But we live here in San Antonio, in a city that's super rich in bar culture, that plays host to several haunted bars. Roxy, do you have any favorite haunted bars in the city, and why?
Again, I don't go to very many bars here in San Antonio just because we are a very large city with a lot of battle history behind us, Native Americans who were, had problems here. And then for me in particular, I guess I would like to consider, when you said as an empath, I was thinking, how would I look at you versus me? I said, look at you more like a psychiatrist, a therapist, somebody who helps them along. And I'm more like the EMT or the paramedic that goes in, and I see all the really bad stuff where you help people get on the mend. You see that other side sometimes. So for bars in San Antonio, I try to avoid them because the amount of people that come in.
Yeah,
Again,
no,
if I ever
no.
do a bar, I go like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't show up at 11 or 12 at night because by then it's just too much chaos for me.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Or it has to be a Monday where no one's there.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, well, I'll invite you at 1 o'clock to go to a bar.
Okay. Start off with some Bloody Marys.
You know, we do have, like I was saying, we have a lot of haunted bars here in the city, and doing tours. I've had the pleasure of taking people to all these bars and sharing people with this history, and I'd love to kind of share a little bit of the history for all of the listeners out here. But we do have a hotel here in San Antonio that's super haunted. It is the Minger Hotel. The Minger Hotel is pretty much right next to the Alamo. And it has a lot of stories, and we only have about 20 minutes left, so I'm not going to tell you all of the stories of that one hotel or the bar, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about the bar itself. The bar itself did open up in 1887. It was an expansion from the original hotel. It is considered the oldest bar in the city of San Antonio, and the cool thing about this bar is you walk in and you're just impressed with this beautiful wood, these beautiful memorabilia in there. It's a gorgeous bar, And the interesting thing is that it was literally created as an exact replica of this bar or this pub in London called the House of Lords. And they took the exact measurements, frame, everything, and recreated here in the hotel. But really the bar has this interesting history with the Rough Riders. If people are familiar with that in our history, the Rough Riders recruited by Teddy Roosevelt, one of our former presidents, to fight in the Spanish-American War. And Teddy Roosevelt did a lot of that recruitment in San Antonio, really most of it. And he did most of it at the Minger Hotel and other rough and tough bars. That was kind of strategy. Let me, go to all these rough and tough bars and find these rough and tough men, and then they can fight in this battle. And so the Minger was really kind of the main stage for all of that. And he recruited people there, and he recruited a lot of the folks there. And claims from the bartender are, late at night, they'll see this gentleman that looks like identical to Teddy Roosevelt, and he's beckoning to them, calling them forward, and the bartender will start walking towards this gentleman, and then he just disappears. So perhaps this is just the residual energy of Teddy Roosevelt trying to recruit a Rough Rider, or perhaps order a drink. But really, the bar welcomes him. The bar has all this memorabilia for Teddy Roosevelt all around. The bar has several other haunted stories and whatnot attached to them. But I think that the idea of perhaps one of our former presidents haunting a bar here in San Antonio is pretty cool.
That is really cool.
But if you get any listeners are ever in the state of Texas, ever in San Antonio, definitely visit the Minger Hotel, visit the Minger Bar. The hotel itself was founded in 1859 by William Minger, and it is just kind of like a step back in time. You go in and there's still old tile, old all this old furniture that dates back from the 1800s, and it's just really impressive to go in. And you and I got to do an investigation in the hotel, which was really great, and we actually got locked in a stairway by one of the spirits there, and I had quite a story. That'll be for another episode, but the Minger, definitely check it out. And
They're very iconic hotel. Yeah, very iconic hotel.
Iconic, beautiful as well. And then we've been to Ernie's Bar at the Crockett. And, the Crockett is right behind the Alamo, literally behind the Alamo. And the Crockett was actually built on what land that Santa Anna and the Mexican army camped on before they basically obliterated the Texas defenders of the Alamo. And they were camped out there for 12 days. And then, on the 13th day, they went ahead and just jumped the north wall and obliterated all the Texians. and so it holds a lot of that energy. If you kind of imagine 12 days, and you have all of these gentlemen, like 5,000 gentlemen here, not knowing if they're going to live or die, that energy gets trapped, and so I think that's why the Ernie's Bar is a haunted bar. And the bartenders have all sorts of cool stories, interesting stories, but one of my favorites that come out of that the bar by the bartenders is this, that often their beer tap equipment, it will completely stop working. And they're like, what the hell, they troubleshoot, they try to fix it, they look at everything, finally give up, put in a work order in, and then they come back at the end of the night to sanitize everything, and it's working like normal. So the idea that I have is either maybe one of the members of the Mexican army was good at mechanics and wants to make sure San Antonio still has cold beer to serve, and we have been a party town since the mid 1800s. So
give us a reason.
It seems logical that could be one of the reasons why that happens. But other bartenders have also said that they will have glasses that will be sitting on tables before they can bust them, and all of a sudden they just become airborne and end up on the floor. So it's an interesting place, and it's highly recommended. The staff is wonderful, and the drinks are always reasonable and great. They pour well there. So if you're ever in town and you get to check out the Minger, you might want to just walk maybe
it's so
2
close.
minutes away.
Yeah, it's right around the street.
Yeah, 2 minutes away to the Crockett, and enjoy a drink there. And Steve and I actually got married at a bar here in San Antonio. We got married at the Cadillac. And the Cadillac bar used to be originally a general store. And this general store had a little bit of a legal operation, it's rumored. Above the general store used to be what was believed to be a brothel. There was kind of an underground brothel. And it's still believed that one of the madams is still there today. And if things aren't done right, aren't done the way they should be, she makes people know. And interesting fun fact is, the area that is now that was a brothel is now a wedding venue, and so that's one of the reasons why we got married there. Like, we get a little bit of that haunt, we get an old brothel, and we also got a really good time there. But if you're ever in town, the Cadillac Bar in San Antonio is definitely a place to go. One of the other interesting facts about the Cadillac Bar is that it was built on what was believed to be a cemetery at one point, and the basement of the Cadillac Bar was completely sealed off because when it would rain, human remains would often be unearthed, and so they sealed that off a while back, so that wouldn't continue to happen. So that
How far of a walking distance is the Cadillac? Is it walking distance from the Minger and the Crockett?
No, not really. But if you're at the courthouse and things don't go the way planned, that might be a place to have a drink because it's very close to the courthouse. So it's not too far. But also we have this wonderful bar called the Esquire, and the Esquire is really one of my favorite bars in the city. The Esquire was, opened up on the day that Prohibition let out. And it was the biggest party in San Antonio. They were the only ones that were ready for the party.
Nice.
Really. And it was packed, jam-packed. There was people everywhere. There was a line that was supposedly a mile long. And it just ran a tenure here in the city, but back in the 80s and 90s, it became very seedy, and it became home to supposedly the Mexican mafia, and there was a lot of crime that happened there, a lot of organized crime, a lot of shootings, stabbings, rapes, these kinds of things. There was also a legal prostitution ring that was run out of it. They had a VIP room in the bar, and the VIP room contained a bed and a sink. So you can kind of use your imagination, perhaps what that might have been used for. But it is definitely a haunted bar. There's definitely a lot of activity. I've had a lot of experiences in the bathroom of all places where the stall doors were like open and closed and nobody else is there. And it's a really interesting thing. And we've actually had guests that when we've taken them to the bar for tours, they're like, I think something just happened to me in the bathroom. And I'm like, yeah, something probably did.
That's weird.
It's just like the bathroom's like a hot spot for things like that. And The Esquire definitely has an interesting history, and if you guys ever are listening, ever go to the Esquire or visiting San Antonio, highly recommend it. One of the cool things is they do have a basement bar as well. The basement bar is known to have quite a bit of activity as well. So I would definitely check out the top bar of the Esquire and the basement bar. They do have all the original furniture and stuff in there from when it was actually from the day it opened.
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
so
really
it's pretty
nice.
cool. It's definitely a cool place to go, and it of course it's not seedy anymore. The Mexican Mafia isn't running it anymore, but it is now kind of a craft beer and luxury cocktail kind of a place, like a
Nice
definitely,
upgrade.
yeah, it's definitely a place to have a $15 drink if you want one. So yeah, I do recommend the Esquire. It's a great place to hang out. But we as a country, we're relative. I just spilled something. Sorry, you guys. We are relatively a very young country, but we definitely have a lot of haunted history in this country. And I have a list of some of my favorite haunted bars around America that I'm going to share with you guys. So the first one is Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop. And so I'm just going to go and read you a little bit of my favorite haunted bars around the country. But Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, according to legend, the pirate Jean Lafitte, aka John Lafitte, owned a business here in the early 19th century. As with many things involving the Lafittes, including the possibility that they used the structure to plot illegal seizures and the sale of contraband, no true documentation exists. It is portrayed to be one of the most haunted bars in the French Quarter today. And it is actually supposedly very haunted by the handsy ghost of Jean Lafitte. Jean Lafitte is said to still haunt the building today. Guests and bartenders over the years have had various paranormal experiences here. The name, the blacksmith shop, may not be coincidental. Lafitte's associates may have operated a blacksmith shop. Jean Lafitte's older brother, Pierre Lafitte, was actually a blacksmith himself and had an association with one of the previous owners of the building. The current business does trace its roots back to Roger or Tom Cloppinger, who in the mid-1940s turned the old abandoned shop into Café Lafitte. The cafe became a popular night spot that attracted a bohemian clientele, including the gay community and celebrities like Noel Coward and Tennessee Williams. Some say that you can still feel the spirit of Tennessee Williams in the bar. However, Cloppinger did not hold a clear title to the property, and the building was sold in 1953. He soon opened a second cafe at the other end of the same block named Café Lafitte in Exile, which maintains that it is the oldest gay bar in America. The building was declared a National Historic Landmark in 1970. And then one of the other favorites is the Pioneer Saloon. The Pioneer Saloon is about 35 minutes west of Las Vegas, out in the desert of Nevada. It lies in an abandoned mining town of Good Springs. Good Springs was booming in the early 20th century, and the town boasted a magnificent hotel, shops, apartments, and of course a saloon. All that's really left now is the Pioneer Saloon, which basically can transport you back to the year 1913, because inside you will find a lot of the original furnishings. You'll also find a cluster of 3 holes that are punched through the tin wall. And these were made when a drunken miner was cheating at poker. He lunged for the card dealer, and the dealer responded with 3 gunshots that went through the man and straight into the wall. Many strange events occur here, causing locals and visitors to assume that the ghost of the miner is trapped, perhaps still playing cards or maybe just enjoying a whiskey. And then we have the White Horse Tavern. This bar is actually considered the oldest bar in America. The White Horse Tavern was opened in Rhode Island Colony in 1673.
Wow.
Making it the oldest bar in the country, though it has had other roles like a boarding house in the early 20th century and a British military quarters during the Revolutionary War. Walking alone in the building, you can really feel that you're not alone. One of the ghosts is an elderly gentleman who is believed to have died while renting a room upstairs in the early years of the White Horse. He has never been seen, or he has been seen by a number of people. Another ghost that is often seen is a small girl that's often heard crying on the second level near the restrooms. I definitely encourage people to visit the White Horse. It is really a kind of a legendary property, in knowing that it dates back to 1673. Really before even the true foundation of America.
Is it just a bar right now, or is it like a bed and breakfast,
No, it's
or
a bar.
just strictly
It's
a bar?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it is a bar. And then I want to share one from Texas. Another one from Texas. We actually have a lot of haunted bars here, but this one is called the Tavern. It's in Austin. During Prohibition, this favorite of Austin was actually a grocery store by day, and then it was an upscale bar and actually a casino and a brothel by night. And some of the patrons, really just have refused to leave. Numerous staff members and visitors at the tavern report having seen a young lady dressed in early 20th century garb. And according to people, it is believed that this lady that they see is actually one of the old prostitutes, and she actually has her daughter with her, and her daughter was actually kind of raised within the tavern. Her daughter's name was Emily, and she actually was supposedly killed accidentally during a fight between patrons. And Emily's spirit has also had a habit of changing channels on the TV and making phone calls from the office phone. And she's also kind of had a habit of occasionally throwing a dish or two to have some fun. But that is in Austin, Texas. So if you're in the state of Texas, I definitely encourage you to come, of course, down to San Antonio for a couple of drinks and hunts, and visit the Alamo, and make your way up to Austin, perhaps visit the Tavern. Very interesting places. We do have a lot of history with gambling in the state of Texas, with brothels, with our red light districts. We have a rather rich and interesting history, everything from cowboys to the Spanish to the Mexican army. We've definitely had an interesting history here. But Roxy, I do have really one last question for you.
Sure.
As an empath, why do you feel that some spirits move on and other spirits just stay behind?
Well, it's really interesting, the two dolls that I told you about. There's one, Genevieve, that every once in a while at night, she'll come and grab my hand and pull me over, and there's like a big white light at the end of like a long tunnel that I can see. And she looks at me and she says, "Can you help me go through the tunnel?" And I can feel her fear. She's afraid to go through the light. Mm-hmm. And I think when it comes down, for me, what my personal experience has been, I can't speak for everybody else. My personal experience, sometimes that white light, even though everybody thinks it might be like really, beautiful and everything else, for others, it scares them. And I know for Genevieve, it scares her, and Guinevere is the same way. So they stay here, and, she'll ask me, and I will tell her when I'm ready, I will help you. Mm-hmm. And that's the time when it's time to go. In the meantime, she doesn't want to go by herself. They're both afraid to go. So sure. I think there is a combination of people who are very willing to just go into it and see what's on the other side. And then there's those that just have a very uneasy feeling about it, or need someone to help them go through the light.
Sure.
And that's at least the only thing that I've experienced that I could tell you hypothetically what I think might be happening.
Sure. Yeah, I like that. And, I kind of like to add, I think that there are some spirits that they're just more comfortable here. Mm-hmm. They're just more comfortable. This is safe. They don't, this is just safe. And
stay with Mama. I'm not going nowhere. I'm waiting right here for you.
It's just safe. And I think that, I don't know, I almost find a romanticism about the idea of staying where it's safe. And this is one of I'm going to probably touch into this next week a little bit more because we do have an episode on pets and spirits of animals and whatnot. But, I recently lost my dog that I had had for a really long time, Newman. And I really felt before Newman died that he would want to stay with us, that he really loved us. And we were all very attached to him, and he was just like our little baby. And so I told him before you died, if you want, you can stay here with us, and you don't have to cross over, and you can be here. And when we go, you can go with us, and we'll take care of you, and we'll cross over all together. Maybe that was selfish on my part because I do want to have him.
Oh, which one of us aren't selfish when it comes to that? It's like, no, that hurt really bad.
So I told him that, and I would hold him, and I still feel like he just passed away actually this week, and I definitely feel him still around, and I think that sometimes it's literally we just wait till maybe we're waiting for somebody to cross over with. We're going to go over together. We're going to face that light together. And I think that some of us literally make that transition, make that wait to cross over that bridge hand in hand. And, we're kind of convinced that Newman is still with us, and we've actually heard weird little things already in the house and stuff. And even though he's been gone a very short amount of time, we feel that,
Yeah, I do believe it is a choice for them to go and cross over or stay here. And I do think for whatever reason, some of them decide to stay around for years, centuries. I don't know why.
Sometimes we just don't know. Yeah.
And then there's other times that, people will say that there's something going on. You go in and there's absolutely nothing because whatever was there is gone. It's not there anymore.
For sure.
What the reasons are, I don't know if any of us have the answer yet, which is why we do paranormal investigating.
Exactly.
Try to find out the answers to why.
Awesome. Well, Roxy, it has been so wonderful having you and spending the afternoon with you, this hour with you. I really appreciate you. And I want to thank all of the listeners for listening and listening to us. And we also want to thank, the Paranormal King Radio Network. Please join us next week as we explore pet and animal spirits and why our furry friends visit us after death. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are CuriousTwins Paranormal. You've been listening to Talking to the Dead with Fred. Thank you and good night.